So, in continuing with the Diadochi War series from Kings and Generals that I've been splitting into parts, if you noticed, we're going to be looking at the succession crisis of the Diadochi.
After securing the throne of Macedon, Demetrios began making moves to consolidate his rule. In 294 BCE, when he
Yeah, I admire Demetrius' spirit. Guy was, formerly, the Prince of Asia, the strongest and largest of the Diadochi under Antigonus, lost it all, and then he just took Macedon. Like, he rebounded quick. He kind of has that Romanesque spirit of not going down without a fight. I kind of admired that.
He heard that Lysimachos had been taken captive by the Thracian Getae tribe while campaigning in Getae lands. He set off to take Thrace. However, before Demetrios reached the region, messengers told him that Lysimachos had been freed. So he turned back to deal with a revolt by the Boeotians and the Thessalians, who had taken advantage of his leave to rise in rebellion against him. Demetrios managed to put down these rebellions by laying siege to Thebes. This exposed his Thessalian territories and allowed Pyrrhos to invade, but Demetrios managed to expel the Epirot king as well. After taking Thebes, Demetrios founded a city called Demetria, and then married Lenassa, the Syracusan ex-wife of Pyrrhos. This marriage represented a further decline in the relationship between Epirus and Macedon.
Yeah, I remember that from the Pyrrhus of Epirus series. He straight up steals Pyrrhus's girl. Well, she leaves Pyrrhus, but, that made it so personal, right? Yeah.
After stabilizing his Greek territories, Demetrios returned once more to Athens, which was now eager to accept the resurgent regional hegemon with garlands. In order for the democratic city to accept a king, they revived the idea that Demetrios was a god, depicting him as a son of Poseidon in connection to his naval supremacy in.
This is a common Hellenistic practice. Kings would deify themselves or claim divine descent after both Alexander but also from their host kingdoms. For instance, this was common practice in Egypt and the kingdom of Megaleno, and took advantage of this as well.
In battles like Salamis. After securing Athens' obedience, Demetrios returned to Macedon, before descending south once again, this time to Aetolia. This further escalated tensions between himself and the Pyrrhic king of Epirus, who saw Demetrios as encroaching on his sphere of influence. The fighting with Aetolia and later with Epiros ended in 290 BCE with a peace treaty. This, however, did not mark the end of the conflict in the Greek mainland. In 289 BCE, Demetrios fell ill, and then faced another invasion by Pyrrhos, which he managed to repel. However, in 288 BCE,
I love how Pyrrhus just keeps jumping him when he's not paying attention. He just jumps in, raids, and then leaves. Granted, he also defeated Paltanke, whatever. He defeated Demetrius' general, I remember that. And it's amazing how Epirus has just been left alone since Alexander's time and so on. It's just always independent. No one ever thought, we could just take it. It's like a relatively small player in the grand scheme of things, but Pyrrhus was known to fight above his weight class. Yeah.
Lysimachos and Pyrrhos, with help from Ptolemy, decided to finish things and invaded Macedonia with an overwhelming force, splitting it between them and forcing Demetrios to flee. Demetrios fled south with his family to Greek territories that they hoped would remain theirs. Over the despair of watching her beloved husband face defeat, his first wife, Phila, took poison and died, a devastating loss for a man who had already lost much of his family in these wars. Seeing Demetrios' foundation of power dissolving beneath him, the fickle citizens of Athens revolted against him once more, and Demetrios responded by besieging the city. The Athenians held on until Pyrrhos arrived to assist them, forcing Demetrios to flee once more. Even after these strings of defeats, Demetrios was always seeking another fight, so he left his southern Greek possessions to his son Antigonos II in Corinth and went to Asia Minor to seize control over Lysimachos' territories. Our record here becomes very sparse, as Plutarch provides us with little detail of any battles that occurred during these campaigns. It seems that initially Demetrios was successful against Lysimachos' son Agathocles, and was negotiating with various successors. However, while recovering from illness in the city of Catalonia, he was ambushed by Seleucus. Demetrios tried to get out of the region, but he was blocked by the Seleucid forces and fled to the city of Kehestica, hoping to stir up a rebellion against Seleucus there. When this failed, he moved to Afrin for a final battle, and then tried to attack Seleucus under cover of night, but the commotion in the enemy camp caused fear in the troops and compelled them to retreat. A fight ensued the next day, but when Seleucus proclaimed that any Antigonid troops would receive pay and safety if they went over to his side, many of Antigonos's mercenaries defected to the enemy. Demetrios once more turned tail with what few allies he had left, but there was no escape. Hiding in a forest, Demetrios unsheathed his sword to commit suicide, but his friends prevented him from doing so. Instead, he surrendered to Seleucus, who treated him with royal honors. Despite his request for a small realm to rule, he was sent to the Chersonese, where he lived, hunted, and exercised in royal parks with his allies. In his mercy, Seleucus allowed Demetrios to live, despite calls by Lysimachos to have him executed. The reason for Demetrios' survival, according to Plutarch, is Stratonike, now married to her ex-stepson Antiochos I Soter. Antigonus II begged, alongside many Antigonid city officials, to surrender everything to Seleucus in exchange for the freedom of the besieger. However, it was not to be, and Demetrios abdicated the throne. His son would continue his dynasty with great honor. Demetrios sank into depression and alcoholism, dying in 282 BCE. Demetrios was ambitious, if at times reckless. However, he was shrewd and very brave on many occasions, and truly lived up to his father's name. The Antigonids were strong because of Demetrios, and their tactical skills would appear many times over the next century. Antigonos received his father's ashes in a gold urn and gave him a royal burial in Demetrius.
Yeah, Demetrius, it was tragic, because we saw him as a young man rise, fight through the Diadochi, and eventually fall. It is sad, but you have to admire his spirit. I think he had a great spirit of constantly not giving up, and he really fought till the very end. Like, again, I do admire a lot of his character in that regard, you know?
After the neutralization of Demetrios, the web of alliances between the surviving Diadochi began to shift once again, beginning when Ptolemy died in 282 BC in Alexandria of natural causes. This was a rare event for a general of Alexander, as most died in court intrigue or battle, as we've seen. Ptolemy II Philadelphos succeeded his father's pharaonic throne. Ptolemy I, whose title was Soter, meaning savior, was a man who preferred to work in his sphere of influence, and was always keen on securing it.
Again, RIP Ptolemy I. Man was a genius, my favorite of the Diadochi. He made the ultimate big gamble that started everything, right? Taking the corpse of Alexander, successfully defending Egypt, giving aid to his allies, constantly working through this web of constantly shifting alliances. Like, he played the game well. I think he played better than most, and, overall, yeah, just RIP, like, ultimate G, man. Like, the guy was a G straight up,
This drove a lot of his foreign policy, though as his occupation of Phoenicia shows, he could also be an expansionist. His Ptolemaic dynasty would rule for centuries, initially being steadfastly proud of their Hellenism and rejecting the customs of the native Egyptians they ruled over, but slowly incorporating pharaonic and Egyptian elements in their rule over time. After Ptolemy's death, relations between the most powerful actors in the Hellenistic world were tense, but it was court intrigue in Lysimachos' Thrace that sparked the embers over the dry kindling. The polygamous king's new wife was Arsinoe, daughter of Ptolemy. Since marrying Lysimachos, she had borne 3 heirs that were lagging in the line of succession behind Agathocles, who was the son of Lysimachos and Nicaea, daughter of Antipater. Lysimachos, who was in his 70s alongside most of the surviving Diadochi, was informed by his younger wife Arsinoe that Agathocles was conspiring against him. We do not know if this was true or if Arsinoe was lying to secure her son's presence on the Greco-Thracian throne, but both could have been true. Consequently, Lysimachos murdered his son, as well as many of his allies in the court. This caused a mass exodus of the Agathoclean faction, including Agathocles' wife Lysandra, who was also of the Ptolemaic dynasty, and a certain Ptolemy Karaunos, who was her brother. Karaunos was a candidate for the Ptolemaic throne, but had fled after Philadelphos became the favourite. This faction of the court fled to Persia to seek refuge with Seleucus. Through their arrival, Seleucus saw an incredible opportunity to expand his realm, and perhaps make it as great as that of Alexander. However, we are unsure of the Greek Shahinshah's true ambitions. As the instability in Lysimachos' court began to spread to the rest of the empire, his possessions in Asia Minor, like Pergamon,
Seleucus installing a puppet. That's what he's gonna try to do, right?
began to drift away from Lysimachos' grip. It was because of this that Seleucus decided to invade the region in 281 BCE. The old general left Antiochus I Soter to rule in his stead in Asia, and then moved on from Babylonia and into Asia Minor. In Pergamon, Seleucus was received by Philetaerus, a lieutenant in charge of the city's considerably wealthy treasury. Seleucus accepted him as a vassal. Thereafter, the region slowly gained independence as the famous Kingdom of Pergamon, ruled by the Attalid dynasty. The campaign was fast. Seleucus easily took some of Asia Minor, causing Lysimachos to rally his troops and move into the peninsula to drive out his foe. The two armies met in the Battle of Corripidion near Sardis in the winter of 282 to 281 BCE. Virtually nothing is known about this battle other than that it was a resounding victory for Seleucus, and that Lysimachos died in the battle. The final strike is recorded as having come by a Heraclean soldier called Malanos. After Lysimachos' demise, Seleucus was now the undisputed grand champion of the wrestling match that was the Wars of the Diadochi. He thus crossed the Hellespont and went into Greece for the first time in decades. He was in his 20s when he left, and like Antigonos and Ptolemy, he had made his home amongst foreigners he ruled over. Seleucus' goal was to move into Macedon and take control of it, but then lightning struck in the form of Ptolemy Karaunos. Ptolemy organized an assassination attempt and murdered Seleucus, killing the last of the Diadochi and dawning the age of the Epigoni, or the heirs of the successors.
Holy crap, I didn't know Seleucus got murdered. Oh my goodness, I thought he might have had a natural-esque death. Crap, I didn't know he's... Holy crap. Oh my gosh, that caught me off guard. I was like, what the... Oh my. Dude, like, I thought he was using this Ptolemy as like a puppet, but no, Ptolemy was using Seleucus. Seleucus got played. Wow. What a way to go.
Seleucus had proven himself to be a prudent ruler, which had secured his rule over Babylon and then Persia. He was also tactically brilliant, as his successes in the east show. His dynasty, the Seleucids, ruled most of the Hellenistic world and hybridized Greek and Persian cultures like no other, before slowly withering away. After eliminating Seleucus, Ptolemy Karaunos went to Macedon with a diadem and then declared himself king. But his luck would soon run foul. The story behind these Celtic invasions is one of the most
Okay, so the next section is, let's see, the invasion of Greece. Gallic invasion of Greece. So I'll say that for its own individual part, coming out tomorrow. Bye everyone.